Hi, welcome to Punchline Talks, the Business Breakfast Briefers. I'm Mark Owen, and each week I invite a panel of business experts to review the morning newspapers, find out what's happened in their own individual business and their own individual business sectors, and finally, what's caught their eye in this week's Punchline. But before I start, I just want to thank our fantastic sponsors, Hazelwood's Accountants and Business Advisors. Okay, let's meet the panel. Today we've got Gareth Edmundson. He's the CEO of Cheltenham Borough Council. The District Council employs over 450 staff, a turnover approximately 18 million, servicing a population of 118,000 residents. Lots of things going on at the CBC at the moment. We found out the latest on the Golden Valley, the sale of the Municipal Building, devolution, what's his take on that? And we can't ignore it, but what's next for Cavendish House? So thanks ever so much for coming on the show, Gareth. We've got Councillor Tony Davey. He's the independent town councillor for Stroud. He's also chair of the Stroud District Chamber of Commerce. He's also the mayor of Stroud at the moment, so congratulations on that as well. And he is the co-owner of two shops in the centre of the town, Confection, Affection, and Party on Up. He also is the interim chairman of LoveNailsworth and helped relaunch the popular artisan street market. So we'll find out how that's going and how is retail going on the high street. Really, really interesting to find out about that as well. And finally, we got Ian Mees, vice chair of the Forest Economic Partnership, board members of the Gloucestershire County Council Economic Board, chairman of the Donation Board. He's also ex-editor of the Citizen Echo, Western Daily Press. And as the budget is fast approaching what's on his wish list. We'll find out from him all about that as well. And I would just like to say a big thanks to Ian, because he is my super sub who often comes on board at the very, very last minute. Sometimes at 10 o'clock at night, he answers my calls. So I just want to say a big thanks for that, Ian. Really appreciate it, mate. Okay, let's see what's making the headlines today. It is the Times, starting off, courtesy of the BBC. Income tax will go up, Reeves tells Watchdog. The Eye, Labour splits at top of new deputy leaders, tells Reeves. Don't raise income tax and break trusts. The Guardian, Powell in charge Powell to challenge to Reeves over tax plans. The Financial Times, keep rate kept on hold at 4% in knife edge Bank of England decision. The Metro, chill bill. The Mirror, summoned. The Sun, tell us what you know, Windsor. The Daily Telegraph, Davies must explain or quit, says Johnson. The Daily Mail, what double standards for the BBC. The Daily Star, car smash. And the Daily Express, end the gang's inquiry, divot and delay. That's all the headings, a bit of a mixed bag. Okay, I'm going to start with you today, Tony. What have you picked out for us?
So it was the very top story that you highlighted, actually, which is about the budget, or at least what might happen. And my main thought for today is just make it stop. It is like death by 1,000 leak cuts. And the reality to it is we've had this delayed budget. It is really impacting people's confidence. Consumer confidence is not great. And we think people do have some money to spend, but because they don't know what's coming and we're not getting very many positive stories about what might happen with the budget, they're just keeping that money back. That's not helping our economy. It's not helping our opportunities within retail and within business. It's stopping businesses from feeling confident about being able to invest. I mean, the knock-on effects are absolutely huge. And we've still got this looming business rates reform, which is supposed to help our high streets. And it looks like it's more likely to protect the likes of Temu, Amazon, Shine and everyone else, because we've got big business going, we may make millions of pounds in profit and pay our shareholders, but don't be giving us any more tax burden. It's supposed to help the smaller business as well. What actually are we going to get? And there's so much uncertainty and no clarity, because these things get leaked. And when you ask a minister, we'll explain a bit more about it, they don't want to talk about what's coming in the budget. So it needs to just be delivered, and we need to have some certainty.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's just been the longest budget news story forever. Exactly what they did last time. Okay, let's go over to you, Ian. Thanks for that, Tony. Ian, what's your thoughts and what have you picked out for the papers?
Well, Tony's right. It's death by 1,000 cuts. I like the Times story, which is written by their political editor, Stephen Swinford. And it is quite alarming, isn't it? We've got a Labour government And what Stephen is saying, this would make tax rise would make the first chancellor in 50 years to raise the basic rate of income tax. That's obviously going to happen, basically. And the Sun have done a very, very good inside page piece by their economics editor. Basically, brace yourselves for budget hell, says Ryan Saby. And I can go through this perhaps a bit later, but it goes through every area where she might actually hit people. As far as business is concerned, just briefly, I can't see anything that's going to help or incentivize business. I may be totally wrong.
Okay, no, thanks for that. Totally agree again. Gareth, great to have you on. What have you picked out for us, please?
So, different theme, I suppose, all related to money, but on the other side of the Atlantic, I'm just interested in a lot of newspapers have picked up the fact that the government lockdown in America has now reached a new record. So no federal government spending is meaning that air traffic control is now being affected. People can't get flights around the country. National parks are under threat. People's Medicaid and Medicare is also looking vulnerable. And I just think, whether it's on this side of the Atlantic and we're all talking about the budget, or whether it's on the other side of the pond, just how important, one way or another, government is in everybody's life. And I was just thinking, just imagine in a Cheltenham scenario, not that this would ever happen, but just imagine if, Pittville Park was shut, or, you couldn't go and access sort of local services, all because Congress can't seem to break a bit of a deadlock in reopening services.
I just can't imagine it, can you? And the armed forces not being paid. And then you have some billionaire paying off the armed forces, or Trump paying off the armed forces. It's just absolutely bonkers, and it goes on for so long. I just don't get it. But then, let's be honest, America's a bit of a basket case at the moment, if you ask me. But have you seen the big tower he's planning to build as well? He's taking it from Paris, hasn't he? The Arch of Triomphe, or whatever it's called. It's going to be a Trump. It's just going to be something to him, isn't it? It's just a monument to Trump. He just loves it.
A new ballroom in the White House as well. He's rebuilding the East Wing, isn't he? So he's building a new ballroom for himself.
Exactly that. What I love about it is getting all his pals to pay for it as well. Okay, let's go over to you then, Gareth. Actually, let's go over to the to council. What's going on at the moment? You've obviously got a lot on your plate. It's very difficult. We get that, really. Money is tight, isn't it? The councils are being squeezed. You've got the sale of the airport going through. You've got this, municipal building. Let's start with the Golden Valley development. How's that going? How's that progressing?
So we're making some real progress on that. So we received our outline planning consent in July. Since then, we've been sort of dotting the I's and crossing the T's on all the kind of agreements that you need to complete with planning, so we can get our full consent. As soon as that happens, we've been working on the very final designs of the first phase innovation centre and buildings associated with that. So we hope to submit that very, very shortly. So the good news is, after talking about Golden Valley for a long time, early summer next year, Punchline will fingers crossed be covering a story of spades going in the ground and the thing actually going up. We've recently brought on our tier 1 contractor to do those first phases. So, after a lot of talk over a number of years, it's great to update that we're on the cusp of getting those spades in the ground and building the thing.
No, fantastic. What about the sale of the municipal building as well? How's that going through?
So as you know, my administration took the decision to say, in terms of what can make a best contribution to what is a critical part of town, an iconic building, to look at converting the municipal offices into a luxury hotel. We are continuing to go through the extensive due diligence process with the preferred bidder, so that's going to continue for the next few months. But the council remains absolutely committed to securing the long-term future of that building. I think one of the things that is really important is that, you know, the critical part of the high street that the municipal office sits on and its iconic nature, it's so important that we secure its long-term future and we add value to the high street. And so that's the important process that we're doing now, because we've got to make sure that it's the right thing for the high street. So hopefully a few months' time we'll be able to give a positive update. One thing I would say is, as someone that's worked at Cheltenham Borough Council the last 5 years, one of the things that people did tell me is we've talked about the municipal offices and moving out of it, I think, for the last about 3 decades. So I would probably say that we're closest than we ever have been about sort of thinking about something new for the muni. So it's quite exciting.
No, very, very exciting actually. And talking about the high streets, I've got to ask you, I can't ignore it. You know, Cavendish House, really. What's happening there, and what's your thoughts on it? Because we've reported on it extensively, as you know, Gareth.
Yeah, you know, I'm very conscious that Punchline have been sort of pioneering and leading on this story. I think one of the frustrations for the council is, you know, when you're not in ownership of the building, you know, things to a degree are outside of the council's control. I think if there's one thing that my councillors want, and I think every resident and visitors of the high street wants, is, you know, Cavendish House, which has been an institution for, you know, over a century in the centre of Cheltenham, to be revitalised, redeveloped into something again, like we're trying to do with the municipal offices, that's something that enhances the high street. The council's role is, I think, trying to play that active convener and to try and really demonstrate that we want Canada Life to bring forward proposals as quickly as possible that demonstrate that they've got ambition for that building, and to make a real material enhanced improvement to the high street. And I think you saw that with the open letter that Rowena Hay, as leader, recently published, you know, calling on Canada Life to bring those proposals forward, because I think that we shouldn't forget just how iconic that building has been as part of Cheltenham Town Centre stories, and how important it needs to be in the next 50 to 100 years.
Yes, and finally, on the same question, I've got to ask you as well. Hopefully, you're pursuing the outstanding debt of over what we consider around 500,000 to the previous tenant of it as well, for unpaid, I think business rates.
Well, you know, is part of the thing. Part of what we've always done well as a council is our performance on collection rates have always been really high. So, of course, you know, we always pursue all debts and within the powers that we have available.
Okay, all right. Thanks ever so much for that, Gareth. I'm going to go over to you, Tony. Tony, so what's it like on the high street at the moment for you? You've got the 3 shops, one in Stroud. Two in Stroud, haven't you? The balloon shop and the candy shop, and then you've got another candy shop in Nailsworth. So how's that? What's it like at the moment? What is Stroud like at the moment?
I think unpredictable is probably the one word that sums it up best. So you can't take sales on a single day's basis and expect to be able to work out what's going to happen. All the patterns are all over the place, and a lot of that is driven by media commentary, to be honest with you. I mentioned a little earlier on about consumer confidence, and that plays a huge part in how confident people feel about going out and investing. And so, yeah, it can be really challenging, but if you take a longer view and measure your performance over a week or a fortnight, then generally things will even themselves out. We just had Halloween, so that's really good. That was very positive for us. Very good for other businesses this year that are in the same sphere as us. So that certainly helped. But of course, the most important thing is we need to make our money as businesses in the coming months. And that's where really I look to urge people to think local first. If you can buy something that you need on your high street, then, please do get out there and do that. And certainly in the Stroud district, we've got a really solid calendar of goodwill events that are coming up. So in Nailsworth, we've got our goodwill in just 3 weeks' time now on the 28th. That's a festival that goes on for 2 days. Similarly, over here in Stroud, we've got ours the first Friday of December. And I think it's also fair to say that it's not all doom and gloom. We've got investment happening too. So if you look at Drancefield Properties Centre down at the Five Valleys, they're just in the process of finishing off a new centre for crafts and vintage. And so as a Chamber of Trade, we've introduced a flyer and a new guide for vintage, because we're really well known in Stroud for vintage, really having a great selection of vintage emporiums. So it's really challenging, and businesses are finding it really difficult, and especially that's the case with hospitality. But there is also optimism, and despite it being really difficult, people are doing their best to drive things forward, and I think that's really good. And I really do respect anyone who just takes that leap of faith and pushes forward, because that is what's going to save our economy.
No, without a shadow of doubt. I've got to ask you though, obviously running a sweet shop, have you got a favourite? I'm a big blackjack man myself, and those little disc things.
Yeah. Chocolate mainly for me, I think, but they try to keep me away from food as best as possible. I don't have a lot of self-control where that's concerned.
Just very quickly on an uptick, right? Halloween, that must give you you've got the candy shop, so everyone's buying sweets, and then you've got the dressing up things. Everyone's buying ghosty stuff. I mean, how much is Halloween worth to you guys?
We actually have a separate Halloween shop which is open all year round, because people very often want to be zombies and witches and things at any time of the year these days. I mean, it is a major seller. It is our equivalent of Christmas. We're in the party world, at least for us. And because we have such a large presence, it's where our party shop was before we moved it. We have people that will travel from miles around, because actually finding party shops these days is not so easy. It's a difficult market to work within. So we have quite a good catchment on that, and it's really interesting to see new customers all the time. But it is a major part of our economic planning for the year. And if we get hit at Halloween, which we did last year more than this, then that really impacts our growth opportunities for the following year.
Because also, I've read somewhere as well, people don't bring the stuff back, in the same way. It can be difficult when you're hiring costumes and things like this. General public working with them is difficult. Do you find that as well?
We do sales, so that doesn't apply to us so much. But we also have stuff which we expect, because of the quality of it, ends up going into the pre-loved elements and help support charities. So better than things that you might find in the supermarkets that fall apart in 5 minutes. Our stuff is nightwear standards, so it's safer, and that's especially important around Halloween and this time of the year. But it's of a quality that it doesn't just fall apart. So you can donate it and give that on to a charity shop. And we know that many of those thrive on it this time of the year as well. So there really is a good circular economy on it. And I think that's really important. We need to do things with the best quality and the best sustainability we can.
All right. No, thanks ever so much for that, Tony. Okay, Ian, let's come over to you. Look, the budget, you and I talk about the budget. We talk about business all the time whenever we meet up. It's your wish list. If there was one thing that you could say to the chancellor, or a couple of things you say to the chancellor, what are you hoping for? Because we have got a big budget show coming down the tracks.
Yeah, well, the obvious one is business rates, but that's in the far distant future, because all that money that comes from business is really, it's a pernicious tax. It doesn't go into local business at all. So business rates would be extremely helpful. I'd like to see incentives somewhere for business. One of our biggest issues is these days is the employment of young people. I've always been like you, a big flat standard bearer for apprenticeships. Fact is, companies, and we're an SME county, as you know, Mark, we've just got just under 30,000 SMEs. A lot of those are micro business with only up to 10 employees. A lot of them would be keen to take on perhaps an apprentice, but they just cannot afford it. They're extremely worried about what has gone last year, gone on, particularly on national insurance. They're looking for some relief. I mentioned earlier a piece in The Sun where they go through all the areas that could be hit. And fuel is one, possibly, that we might find. Pensions, pubs particularly. I think there must be some help for hospitality, particularly. So really, we're looking for something quite substantial for business. But if I'm blunt with you, I just don't see it happening. I'd love to say, she's going to do this, but Tony is quite right. The media commentary is such that we're all in a feeling of real concern. I'm not sure it's going to be as bad as it's painted, frankly, but I think it's going to be perhaps the most interesting budget we've had for a long time. And bear in mind, this is the Labour Party. And as I said earlier, they face the challenge of the first Chancellor in 50 years to raise the basic rate of tax. But I think that's the only way that she's going to make any sort of hold on this £30 billion deficit.
Okay, thanks ever so much. So my big worry with the budget is actually that she's going to put up the minimum wage again, and that would be a absolute killing for the job market at the moment, especially for young people. Okay, let's open it up to the whole panel. Let's do question time at the moment. Okay, for a couple of minutes. I'm going to ask you, not normally, but Gareth, I'm going to give you a chance. Would you like to ask any of the other panel guests a question?
Sure, I'd like to ask Tony a question, actually, as a retailer on the high street. One of the things I think is interesting, certainly my experience in Cheltenham, is sometimes people think that events going on around the town centre is just always good for retail, but that's not always the case, because some events don't actually push people into shops. So from your perspective, what are the best sort of events or things going on in town centres that really drive kind of footfall and sales for you?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It definitely can be that way. We always look at not footfall, but productive footfall. And so we have some festivals here that really work to engage with businesses. Right now, we've got Stroud Book Festival. I mean, it really does pack a punch. We got some excellent names, presentations going on in the subrooms and other venues across the town, but they also introduce things that bring the businesses into the fold, even things as like a tour around the shops for the kids to find little animations that are in the windows and to be able to enter a competition that matches in with the theme of the festival can really make a difference. Even though they may be low tech ways of doing it, but it really does work. If you have an event which just takes people into a venue, they experience that event and then they go home, it does have an impact on our local economy for sure, but it isn't maximising what can be there. We have a brilliant food festival here in Stroud, which also looks to occupy the streets. You have no choice but to walk past the shops. That can work really well. And in Nailsworth, we won the tender for the market. That's really important socially for the town, not just from a perspective of being a trader and helping some smaller traders be able to make their first steps into that before perhaps they take other units. But we've taken a holistic approach. And when we market that, we market it about going to the town. We have two markets, actually, one in the Mortimer Room, the main Nailsworth Artisan Market. They're the second Saturday of the month in Nailsworth. But we encourage people to get out there and also see all the businesses that are there. And we make sure that the markets don't compete against the shops. And I think if you can get that balance right, and that takes a lot of partnership working, those are the things that can really help bolster that productive spend in a town, and also return brilliant returns on investment for the people that invest in that town by going and visiting it as well, because they get a much more holistic experience.
Okay, thanks very much. Anybody else got a question?
I just think, Mark, Tony's got towns in the Stroud and Five Valleys that really are connected. I mean, it's a tremendous situation, and I think him and his team are doing a great job there.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Okay, right. Well, we'll quickly move on as time is run out. Okay, what have we picked out from the papers? Gareth, let's bring you back in. What have you picked out from Punchline this week?
So I'm sure this is another story that Punchline are going to be covering over the next few weeks. So I couldn't resist not picking out the fact that we've been talking about the Chancellor maybe being the first Chancellor to raise taxes in 50 years. Well, this month represents the biggest decision that local councils in Gloucestershire will have for 50 years, because this is the month that every council decides what their preferred option to go forward to the government is for local government reorganisation. So that is essentially looking at reducing the 7 councils that we have across Gloucestershire, 6 districts and 1 county into either one big council, 2 councils on an east-west sort of geography, or an option put forward by Gloucester City where it's an expanded Gloucester council with the remainder in a separate council. I know that people sometimes think, oh, well, local government might be a bit boring or not something that is particularly exciting. But one thing I can say is local government touches every area of your life, whether you're a business or you're a resident. And so it is going to be hugely important, whether we like it or not, what the future of local government looks like in Gloucestershire.
No, I totally agree. I think the trouble is, no matter how much we write about it, the engagement really isn't there. There's like a third of people who are really, really interested, like all of us, right? Really engaged in it, understand it. Another set of people don't really get it. They just don't understand it at all. And then you have another set of people who don't care, and I think that share, that kind of communication, because you have to be worried, Gareth. I mean, if you have seven elite chief execs, right, knocked down to 1 chief exec, how does that work?
Well, if I'm not here on future Punchline talks, you'll know, you'll know the outcome. But yeah, I mean, look, you've got to be realistic. One of the reasons the government puts forward about doing this is to try and create more savings and efficiencies. I do think you've got to be careful about how you do make efficiencies, because sometimes when you create bigger organisations, they risk becoming more inefficient at a really local level, and it's about finding the right balance. What I would say is I think it's really difficult at the moment. I completely understand a lot of people feeling completely apathetic, is because these changes aren't going to take effect for maybe 2.5 years. So it's really difficult to get excited about something that's not going to happen for a while. And, realistically, most people who pay their council tax or business rates, they just want the council to do a good job at delivering the services that are most important to them. And the reality is that's basically people getting their bins collected, keeping their streets clean and all those sorts of things. But I think it is so important, because ultimately the changes that are going to come down are going to impact, whether we like it or not, all of those key services that people rely on. And so it's really difficult at the moment because it's still a long way off. But the decisions that are going to be made in council chambers this month, and then the final decision, which is taken by the government, so the government takes the final decision next year, is going to have an impact on everybody. But we just don't know what that impact is going to be yet. So it is difficult for many residents to try and sort of get excited about it at the moment.
Okay. Thanks ever so much for that. Ian, what have you picked out from Punchline this week?
Well, we both attended yesterday the event at the Forum by Patch, and I was very impressed with their operation. I mean, it's creating a working environment for particularly startups, small companies, SMEs. I've sort of worked as an editor here in Cheltenham, Gloucester, and the region for 20 odd years, and I've seen things get better for Gloucester. I think I was really impressed by this guy, Freddie Ford. You know, really inspirational. And I see this as a big part of the development of Gloucester. Taken the university campus now, the old Debenhams building, the fact that Lounges is coming into King's Square as well. I think it's very, very exciting. And that's what we've got to have. We've got to have inspirational people standing up for Gloucester.
No, and we've had some new blood come in, which is really good. You know, like the guys from the food doc, like Dr. Foster's, you know, like other entrepreneurs coming in, and they've got the new energy about it, which is fantastic. Totally agree with you there, Ian, about Freddie as well. Tony, what's your pick of the punchline before we wrap up?
So I think a story that you covered yesterday that is really important. For the first time since the very early 2000s, there's a possibility of a new train service that links Birmingham to Stonehouse and to Stroud stations. And that is really important, especially for the tourism economy here. Yes, you can get to Cam and Dursley station from Birmingham, but this is literally going to put a larger part of the Stroud district on the map. That's really important for Happy Spend, and Happy Spend is really important to towns like ours here. Tourists that are coming out, they're thinking more about their experience than they might be about their bank balance, and I think that can be a good thing to bolster our local economy. So really positive about that. If it happens, that will be great. The downside, though, is we've been promised for a long time that we would get accessibility improvements into Stroud Railway Station. So it will be great to bring people in, but if you've got mobility issues, it's not going to be so great for your journey to and from the station into the town centre. So I hope that this government will hold on to the promises of the previous one and actually get us that investment here, because it does seem odd that we can be in 2025 and you can have a station that just isn't accessible to people that have mobility issues, when we do our very best, even within an old town, to make sure that our businesses are accessible as they possibly can be. So I just hope that this addition might actually bring that final step that we need for our town railway station here in Stroud.
Okay, no, great bunch of stories. Thanks so much for that. I just want to actually say that Richard Graham fought really, really hard, to be fair, you know, ex-MP for Gloucester, to do exactly that. When I first met him, he campaigned to get the mobility access for Gloucester, and it took him 10 years, but fair play, he did get it done in the end. Okay, unfortunately, that's all we got time for. I'd just like to thank you all for getting up extra early and for taking part today. Thank you to my wonderful panel. Thank you to our sponsors, Hazelwood's Accountants and Business Advisors, and thank you all for watching. If you like the show, please like, share, and subscribe. We'll be back again next week, but in the meantime, remember, it's all in the punchline. Thanks ever so much. Bye.